Amazing, thank you.
Round of applause for Katja. Take a deep breath.
I guess I just have to talk a little bit faster.
Okay.
Oh, time hasn't started yet.
Yeah.
Yet? Shall we?
On you go.
On we go. Okay, yeah, so I wasn't sure how this whole introduction thing works, so I have a little slide on myself. I work for Infinity Works in Leeds. They also have an office here in London. You may or may not have heard of it. I started my career working for a company called Linden Lab. I don't know if anybody here remembers the crazy virtual world Second Life. Yeah, so that's what I did. I went on to work a little bit for Disney Online, or Club Penguin to be specific, so another virtual world just for smaller creatures this time. Worked for Anaplan, which apparently now is the only unicorn in the UK. But I moved away from that and now I'm doing consultancy work. I am originally from Germany. Nothing much to say there. I left for Brighton and never went back, but I did a stint in Gibraltar in between just because, so now I'm up in York. And I did a number of things before I actually became a tester. So I am a tester these days. I was a chef, which I still love. I love cooking, I like eating, as you can see. But the constant repetition of hammering out things is not particularly nice. And I worked at the theater a little bit, which plays in nicely with my general interest in philosophy and literature. So I do that a lot, and I do like knitting and spinning yarns. So what I'm going to talk about today is a book by a guy called Nassim Taleb. And he got a lot of attention a few years back by writing a book called The Black Swan. I don't know if anybody has heard about that. And it dealt with the unforeseeability of major critical events and our inability to deal with them because we can't foretell them. So what do we do? So the central idea was that we shouldn't be trying to predict these events, but what we should be trying is to put ourselves in a state where we can withstand them. I like reading, as I mentioned, so I got the follow-up book with Antifragility. I wait for the train a lot. I commute by train. Reading helps me pass the time because I don't know if anybody else here commutes by train. Mostly it involves waiting and not much going. So what is antifragility? Antifragility, if you think about it this way, if you ask people what the opposite of fragile is, what would you say? Robust is good. Unbreakable often comes up. Resilient is another one that often comes up. So what Taleb proposes is there is a third state, which is the exact opposite of fragility, namely anti-fragility. A state in which you emerge from a crisis not just unharmed, but actually better than you were before. So if you think of it this way, I don't know how much of you are firm on the Greek mythology, so there was this guy Damocles. He was incredibly jealous of his king Dionysus, and he said, well, I should be king, really. I would be, doing a much, much better job at this than you were. After some nagging, his king said, okay, fine. We swap places for one day. Have a seat on my throne. We will have, a big feast coming up for you. However, be aware, there is a big sword hanging above you. And this sword is hung from the ceiling, tied up with one hair from a horse's tail. This is a fragile position, obviously. And Damocles didn't make it very long. He resigned on the spot. The phoenix, on the other hand, is the picture or image of robustness. The phoenix, when the phoenix dies, is reborn from fire. It comes back in the exact same shape and form as it was before. It doesn't care about crisis, because crisis doesn't affect it. It isn't worse off after it's died. It's not any better either, but fine. And then you have the Hydra. The Hydra is a dragon that grows 2 heads every time one of his heads is cut off. So this doesn't make it indestructible. It can be killed. You have to cauterize just after you cut, basically. But it improves. It gets better from the attempt to destroy it. So this is what we mean when we talk about antifragility. Or a real-life application, slightly more modern, me and the trains. The train thing puts me into a rather fragile position. I need to go somewhere. I need to get there. I can't get there without the train. I may get fired if I am constantly late, right? So wouldn't it be nice if we can change that situation to become something non-fragile, something anti-fragile? So I became aware of this theory of antifragility in a discussion I heard about cognitive biases. Cognitive biases are all the hot rage, so everybody's into them, so am I. And wouldn't it be nice to know that if we remember something, then that is the most pertinent bit of information to the situation we're in? Actually, that is often not true. So take risk assessment. As a tester, I'm quite often asked for risk assessment. We assess risk based on our knowledge of the past, which means we only know about the risks we have already gone through, which also means there is plenty of risk in the future we just don't know about. Failure is not just the shape of failure we know already. It may take any form, so this is something to be aware of. Another example for that, we probably all remember the atomic crisis in Fukushima. So the reactor was built to withstand earthquake, and it did that pretty well. The earthquake happened. The backup power system kicked in as expected, and everything was fine. What they didn't expect was a tsunami, and that took out the power, and that's why this catastrophe happened. So wouldn't it be nice if the scientists in Japan, and apparently, or so I'm told, I couldn't really verify this, would be now not be looking at making reactors more tsunami-proof. What they're looking at is how to build reactors that are immune, or that basically do not affect us negatively when there is a negative event. So, for example, one way would be to make them very, very small and build them deep underground. So if there is a meltdown event, it just doesn't reach the surface and doesn't happen. Not that I'm a huge fan of meltdown events at all. So what this means is, in complex systems, it is very, very hard to foretell even the impact of a small crisis. Maybe we don't want to approach this as having a set theory of what is going to happen if X happens. So X happens, I don't know, we have a power cut, that this is going to happen throughout our system. Maybe we should just simulate and observe what is going to happen. Maybe we want to pay attention to events that happen with some regularity and form our theories based on our observations rather than on foretelling them all. This is a lot what is happening currently in the observability space. This idea that no complex system is ever fully healthy or is ever entirely stable. And this is why you want to build in access points where you can see into the system and basically respond to reality rather than try to predict reality. So making things more complicated doesn't mean they're necessarily better. This is kind of where the overlap for me is with what we are here for today for BDD. Work in small incremental steps. Define your next step before you plan the step after that. Don't assume you know where you're going for your entire journey. Take it in the bits that you know are currently of business value. Do that, and then reassess. Take your next step, reassess, and so on and so forth. As humans, we like to fix problems kind of into the future. We like to fix problems we have experienced before. We try to avoid running into the same problem again without actually having proof that the same situation is going to be a problem again. Maybe something that was a problem in the past is perfectly fine for us in the future. We just don't know, but we kind of tend to build against this. So this is often referred to as naive interventionism. This is like a doctor who tries to give you antibiotics for a cold. Maybe you should give your body a chance to heal itself before you actually try to do something. you need to allow the system to display its self-healing properties. And the more complex the system is, the more you probably want to do that, or the more you want to build that into your system. Networking, for example. Networking is a fairly simple system, but it deals with with vastly unknowable conditions. And it does that pretty well. Or the latest rage, of course, cloud environments. You can shrink, or you can, expand your cloud services. You can spin up a new server if one goes down. So all of that responds directly to whatever it is that's happening in your system right now. So I am aware that this is all a little bit fragmented, but this is what it's all about. It is about fragmentation. It is about, do not try to centralize things, because the more you centralize, the more you will have one single point of failure. So try again to slice things into straightforward steps that are based in reality, that immediately deliver value to your business. So what about the benefiting from the crisis? If you want to agree that more information is a benefit, then yes, this can be done. To be honest, other than that, mostly for me, what I pulled out from this is be open to change. Be aware that change is always the only constant you will be having, and make sure that you stack your cards such that you benefit from change rather than be overwhelmed by the change. Set yourself up to work with change. And my train problem? Truth be told, I am taking the bus these days. The bus is on time, I get a seat, I can read my books in comfort, and if the bus doesn't show up, I still have the reliably horrible train experience to fall back on. Thank you for listening.
Do you want me to ask the embarrassing question?
I don't know if you have any, or anybody else has any.
Does anyone have a question that they would like to ask?
Go.
Thank you for the talk. Lots of different ideas, and I'm wondering, as a consultant, how many of them do you present to your clients, and where do you start with that?
It depends on the client, obviously. So I will always try to present them with the idea that we should be as agile and lean as possible and not worry about everything from up front. We implement things as and when we need it. We automate things as and when we need them. So for example, you can start with a delivery pipeline where you actually have manual approval steps. And that may become too much at some point, and then you will write an automated script to push things automatically through your pipeline, that kind of thing. So it's a gradual build-up usually.
Thank you, that's helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any more for any more? I'll take that as a no. Thank you very much, Katja.
Thank you.